This is the United States' absolute worst airport, also known as LaGuardia. Now, the reason I say that this is the worst airport in the United States is because of this survey of more than 34,000 travelers that revealed respondents were less satisfied at LaGuardia than at any other large or medium-sized North American airport. And if we add the fact that in 2014, Joe Biden said the following to a crowd in Philadelphia. Quote, "If I blindfolded you and took you to LaGuardia Airport in New York, you would think I must be in some third world country." So yeah, LaGuardia isn't great, but this is just one US airport in a very large country that relies on air travel and car usage to get around. So surely the other airports are much better, right? Well, not quite. See, US airports are widely regarded as some of the worst in the world. US airports are, in fact, so bad that the Airports Council International estimated in 2019 that they would need to spend $128 billion on infrastructure over the following 5 years to, get up to standard. Not to mention the fact the American Society of Civil Engineers awarded the American aviation industry a D grade in its 2017 infrastructure report card. So it's pretty simple. US airports are terribly designed, a fact that I know is hard to believe. I mean, the US pioneered the development of modern aviation, so how can US airports be so bad? Well, it turns out the answer lies across a number of different areas. Firstly though, US airports were built quite a long time ago, mainly during the early expansion in the 1950s and 60s, which brings a number of problems. For example, the fact that the facilities are completely out of date and too small to fit the modern security infrastructure required today. So all of these modern facilities have had to be built within a very small area. But shortage of space doesn't just end with crowded security infrastructure. American airports are short of space everywhere in the terminal buildings. This in turn means they simply don't have enough gates to accommodate each aircraft, which is bad news for passengers. But it gets worse, as you can see in LaGuardia's runway design. It's quite flawed. See, the two runways are placed at right angles and cross at the endpoint. This means they can't be used at the same time, which eliminates one of the biggest advantages to having multiple runways. Now sure, LaGuardia is being upgraded, but to give some perspective of what is possible, I thought why not show you the gold standard when it comes to airports, that of course being Singapore's Changi Airport. While LaGuardia has a leaking roof and massive overcrowding, Singapore's airport has a koi pond and a butterfly garden. When we compare a massive high-tech and consumer-focused airport with LaGuardia, we can see the scale of the problem. And before I get roasted for comparing these two airports, it should be noted that their terminals are almost exactly the same size at 753,500 square feet for Singapore's airport and 750,000 square feet for LaGuardia's. Although somehow, Singapore's airport has more than twice as many passengers going through it each and every single year, while still having room for all these amazing amenities. I think you get the point. So let's move on to another big problem with US airports, which is the fact that they don't feature particularly good transport links. While European and Asian airports feature excellent public transport connections to enhance access, US cities rarely feature mass transit from suburbs. In turn, this creates an increased reliance on the private car to travel to the airport, which causes lots of traffic jams. To illustrate this point, let's take a look at LAX. This is a map of the airport with its main access road. As you can see, it's quite busy. The reason for this is the absolute terrible design of this road that for some reason is shaped like a horseshoe, which means it can take 30 minutes to drive just 1 mile from LAX's outskirts to most of its terminals. But if you're from Europe, like me, you might be thinking, no problem, I'll just use public transport. The only problem with that is that LAX and Los Angeles as a whole was designed primarily for cars, which means catching public transport is not really a great option. Thus, most people drive to the airport, which in turn creates more traffic. And there's a very specific reason why US airports want you to drive there that I'll get back to just a bit later. But for now, let's move to a broader picture of the US's airports once again. Here we see another problem: the locations of them. See, US airports are often limited to the size they were in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, because they are near populated land, which makes it very difficult or impossible to expand the airport. This means that many airports still have the same outdated footprints from back then, which are too small to cope with the level of demand they see today. This means the only tools they have available to improve these airports are either patching up areas with renovations or starting from scratch. And surprisingly, it can be a lot easier, though much more expensive, to opt for just starting over again. But both of these solutions take a long time. They also create problems like, where do you put the passengers if you are redeveloping a major terminal when you don't even have enough space to begin with? It's just not optimal. All this means that US airports have not received the level of investment seen in other countries. As you can see from this chart, that really shows the extent of underinvestment. Now, it's estimated that US airports require a $115 billion investment across these areas to, not suck. Most of this investment is required at the terminal building level, frequently one of the most disliked elements of US airports. There is some good news though, as the US government does recognize that they need to invest in airports. In fact, airport investment is one of the few areas where the two American political parties have worked together. And that's a relief, because that investment isn't coming from the private sector anytime soon. The stock market lost $13 trillion this year. For reference, that's more than the entire GDPs of Japan, Germany, and the UK combined. No wonder Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, warns, quote, that something worse than a recession could be coming. What he's describing could have cataclysmic effects on stock markets, real estate, gold prices, and cryptocurrencies. No one will be spared. No wonder mega firm BlackRock recently warned that a typical portfolio of stocks and bonds won't be enough to secure your financial future, and investors need to look at alternatives that have proven their stability in the past. The head of BlackRock, Larry Fink himself, is bullish on one alternative in particular: contemporary art. Because contemporary art is a historic store of wealth with a near zero correlation to the stock market, and its appreciation has more than doubled the S&P 500's returns for the last 25 years. And with Masterworks, diversifying your portfolio with contemporary art from legends like Picasso and Banksy only takes a few clicks. These are physical paintings, not NFTs, securitized through SEC public offerings and made investable for the public. And from the 5 paintings they've sold so far, Masterworks has delivered an incredible 26.8% net returns to investors. That's through COVID, a bear market, and scathing inflation. Past performance is no guarantee for future results, but they've done so well that there's a line of people waiting to be let onto the platform, especially in light of all the buzz around alternatives. So use my link in the description to skip the waitlist and get started today with Masterworks. Thank you again to Masterworks for sponsoring this video. Alright, back to the video. Airport investment is scheduled to receive a large increase. See, on November 2021, the bipartisan infrastructure law was signed, which allocated $550 billion to essential infrastructure, with $25 billion for US airports. The majority of this money, $15 billion, will be allocated to upgrading old airside infrastructure, like runways, while only $5 billion is allocated to the landside infrastructure such as terminal upgrades. The remainder will be spent on air traffic control equipment. So, to be honest, it's not ideal, but it is a start. But I think it's time we discuss one of the biggest problems with US airports. Alright, so in many countries around the world, airports make lots of money. So surely this would be the case in the United States as well, one of the world's most important centers for global capitalism. Right? Well, no. The issue is based on airport ownership, federal investment, and taxation. See, since 1926, US airports have been owned and managed at the state level. This excludes 2 airports that serve the US District of Columbia, but we won't talk about those in this video. This means that US airports outside of DC are intended to be self-funding and obviously receive little investment from the federal government. For example, Atlanta International Airport, the busiest airport in the US, usually receives about $130 million from the federal government, which might sound like a lot, but comparing this figure with what the 30 largest US hub airports really make their money on, it pales in comparison. And this is where it starts to get interesting, because it turns out the 30 largest hub airports make $6 billion a year on parking and car rentals alone, which greatly reduces the incentive to expand the income stream to other areas. I mean, if you're making lots of money from one revenue stream, why would you spend lots of money upgrading other parts of your infrastructure to potentially earn a profit? It just doesn't make sense for them. But going back to this ownership model where states own these airports, instead of them being privately owned, makes no sense. I mean, almost 75% of passengers in Europe travel in either partially or fully privatized airports, which is quite odd to me as the United States is the richest nation on earth and home to some of the most powerful companies as well. Yet, their model of airport ownership and operation is hardly capitalistic at all. We can also see this in tax levied on US aviation. See, the US industry is subject to a significant number of US taxes. In 2015, there were 17 taxes applied to flying, including the 9/11 security fee and excise tax and the federal segment fee, to name just a few. In fact, US airline tickets are actually taxed at a greater federal level than alcohol and tobacco. This means that flying is actually quite expensive, which in turn reduces the money left over to improve the facilities and leaves airports with little choice but to earn the money from non-aeronautical ventures like parking. And we can also see the limitations of the US airport structure of ownership and management when we look at the retail facilities. While European and Asian airports frequently offer excellent shopping facilities, the US's offerings often are limited and extremely expensive. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying snacks in a European airport are cheap, but the US is definitely on a whole new level. This is because US airports often do not charge retailers a fixed rental price, but instead charge the shops a percentage of their profits. Subsequently, US airports have very expensive stores, with prices sometimes climbing to $9 for one bag of peanut M&Ms. Crazy, right? But all this means US airports don't make much money from retail, which is understandable. I mean, if the shops aren't very good and also expensive, why would you spend money there? But let's take another example. The US passenger facility fee, essentially a charge levied on passengers that, came after 9/11, which currently sits around $4.50, which hasn't changed since 2001. Now, this is a very common fee you see in airports, but in other airports like Calgary International, a Canadian airport, they charge a $27 fee when you book your ticket, which is significantly more than the US's $4.50 fee. So why is the US's fees so low? Well, the thing is that US airlines often lobby against any increase to this charge, believing that if they make flying more expensive, then fewer people will want to travel. But the problem with this is if you can't raise any more money to invest in your facilities, people won't want to fly anyway. It was estimated in 2017 that from the sale of a $4 bottle of Portland spring water, the airport would receive only 72 cents, which creates a whole nother problem. US airports don't make enough money to cover all the essentials of modern transport, like security, safety, and facility upgrades, making the airports less attractive to Americans and foreign visitors. But how could the US do things differently? Well, by taking a look at other airports in the world, for example in Canada, airports have largely been privatized, raising money through private investment, selling operator rights, and raising the user fee. Which leaves the question, why hasn't the US privatized their airports yet? Well, this goes back to the structure of ownership and operation of US airports. You see, there are many different stakeholders in US airports, for example city council, mayors, state governments, unions, etc. That's a lot of people who have different interests and priorities who would all have to agree. And when investments are made in US airports like LaGuardia, they are difficult to fund for this very reason. I mean, if you can't sell the airport and can't raise much more money from the passengers as their fee has been completely frozen, then how do you find the many billions to upgrade? Well, there's only one option left, and that is going into debt. Which I really think brings the point home, that they need to privatize their airports. Whether that happens or not, only the future will tell. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and subscribe. I've noticed a lot of people seem to forget to subscribe. So if you enjoy my videos, go down and hit that button. It's free and it would really make my day. But yeah, thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one.